Let your thoughts slow down as we drift into a quiet story beneath the glowing lights of Las Vegas. Imagine the hum of a taxi moving through empty streets, the world outside calm and distant. Inside, a tired driver meets two unusual passengers, quiet teenagers who carry a secret far beyond anything ordinary. As the night deepens, their journey unfolds softly, like a dream. There are distant figures searching, a quiet sense of urgency, and a faraway mountain waiting in silence. But here, in this moment, there's no rush, only the gentle rhythm of the road, the low murmur of voices, and the steady feeling that everything is moving exactly as it should. So settle in, get comfortable, and let this peaceful adventure carry you slowly toward rest. Now, close your eyes, and let the night carry you gently into dreams. High above Earth, at a quiet American space station, everything seemed routine, until a strange signal suddenly appeared on the monitors. It wasn't like anything the scientists had seen before. The signal showed an object moving at incredible speed, heading straight toward Earth. The room quickly filled with tension as experts tried to understand what they were seeing. Within moments, the information was passed to a military general. As soon as he realized the seriousness of the situation, he gave a quick order: contact Burke immediately. Burke was known for handling unusual and highly classified cases, and if something mysterious had entered Earth's atmosphere, he was the man to investigate. Not long after, Burke arrived at the military base. Calm but focused, he joined a team of scientists and soldiers. Without wasting time, they prepared to head toward the location where the object had landed. Whatever had come from space had already reached the ground, and no one knew what it was. When Burke and his team arrived at the site, they were met with a shocking sight. The area looked disturbed, as if something powerful had crashed or landed with force. The ground was damaged, and the surroundings felt strangely quiet. As the team began their investigation, Burke noticed something unusual: movement near the soldiers. Sensing danger, he immediately ordered the entire area to be sealed off. No one was allowed to enter or leave. Whatever had arrived was not ordinary, and caution was necessary. Meanwhile, far from the landing site, life continued as usual in the busy city of Las Vegas. A taxi driver named Jack was going about his daily routine, picking up passengers and driving through the lively streets. One of his passengers struck up a conversation. He mentioned an upcoming event discussing the possibility of life on other planets. The passenger explained that he was a doctor and researcher, clearly passionate about the topic. He even invited Jack to attend. But Jack wasn't interested. To him, such discussions felt distant and unimportant compared to his everyday concerns. Politely but firmly, he declined the invitation and continued with his work. The next morning, Jack sat at home watching the news. A report caught his attention. The government had closed off a large area due to what they claimed was a dangerous gas leak. Jack found it unusual, but like most people, he had no idea that this gas leak was actually the location where the mysterious object had landed. Back at the restricted site, Burke's team continued their search. After hours of careful investigation, they discovered something remarkable: footprints. But these were no ordinary footprints. They didn't match any known human or animal pattern. Whatever had made them was something entirely unknown. At the same time, Jack returned to work at his taxi stand. His day took an unexpected turn when two rough-looking men approached him. They worked for a man named Mr. Wolf, someone from Jack's past. They told Jack that their boss wanted him back. Apparently, Jack had once been a highly skilled driver for their group. But that life was behind him now. Jack refused without hesitation. He made it clear that he would never return to that world. The men didn't take the rejection well and began threatening him. However, Jack stayed calm. Using quick thinking and a bit of skill, he managed to outsmart and knock them down, ending the confrontation just as a police car arrived. For a brief moment, things settled down. But not for long. Soon after, Jack noticed something strange. Two children were sitting in the back seat of his taxi. He hadn't even seen them get in. Slightly confused, he asked where they wanted to go. The girl, who introduced herself as Sarah, spoke calmly. She said they needed to reach a place urgently. Beside her, a boy named Seth held up a large amount of money and said Jack would be paid whatever he wanted. Jack didn't fully understand what was going on. The children seemed unusual, but the urgency in their voices and the sight of the money made him agree. As he started driving, he realized something odd. The children couldn't clearly explain where they wanted to go. Instead, Sarah gave directions step by step, guiding him through darker, quieter roads. Unbeknownst to Jack, far away, Burke and his team were reviewing surveillance footage. They had made a shocking discovery. The two individuals they were searching for were not ordinary humans. They were aliens disguised to look like children. Even more surprising, these two had displayed incredible abilities. They had withdrawn money from an ATM without even touching it. Their powers were beyond normal understanding. When Burke saw footage of the taxi stand, he realized that a driver, Jack, had unknowingly taken them. Immediately, he ordered his team to locate the taxi and bring the children in. Back on the road, Jack began to feel uneasy. Something about his passengers didn't feel right. He wondered if they had run away from home or gotten into trouble. Trying to help, he gently asked about their parents. But neither Sarah nor Seth answered. Instead, they seemed alert, almost as if they were expecting danger. And they were right. In the distance, headlights appeared. Someone was following them. Jack, trying to stay calm, assumed the cars behind were just passing by. He slowed down slightly, expecting them to move ahead. But these were not ordinary drivers. They were Burke's men, and they had come to stop the taxi. The quiet drive had just turned into something far more dangerous. The quiet road that Jack had chosen suddenly didn't feel so peaceful anymore. The headlights behind them grew brighter, and the engines of the approaching vehicles roared louder with every passing second. What Jack had first assumed were ordinary drivers quickly revealed themselves to be something else entirely. The cars began to spread out, moving with precision and purpose. They weren't trying to pass, they were trying to surround him. Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Years ago, he had been known for his driving skills, and even though he had left that life behind, his instincts hadn't faded. He could tell immediately this was a coordinated move. "Stay calm," he muttered, more to himself than to his passengers. But in the back seat, Sarah and Seth were already alert. Their eyes focused on the vehicles behind them, as if they had been expecting this moment all along. Jack slowed down slightly, hoping the cars would pass. Instead, they closed in. That's when he knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. Without warning, one of the vehicles sped forward, attempting to block his path. Another pulled up alongside them. Within seconds, the taxi was nearly boxed in. "Hold on," Jack shouted. In one swift motion, he slammed the brakes, causing the cars around him to misjudge their positions. Then, with a sharp turn of the wheel, he maneuvered the taxi through a narrow opening between two vehicles. Tires screeched against the asphalt as he accelerated forward. Behind them, the pursuing cars struggled to regain formation. For a moment, it seemed like they might escape. But the chase had only just begun. More vehicles appeared, joining the pursuit. These drivers were trained, determined, and relentless. They closed the distance quickly, surrounding Jack once again. Frustration flashed across Jack's face. He glanced at the rearview mirror, then at his passengers. "Who are you kids?" he demanded. "What is going on?" But before they could answer, another vehicle lunged forward. Thinking quickly, Jack shouted, "Get out of the car!" The sudden command startled Sarah and Seth, but they didn't argue. They stepped out just as Jack made a bold move. He steered sharply, causing two of the pursuing cars to collide with each other. The crash created just enough chaos to slow the attackers down. However, one car remained steady. Inside it was Burke. Unlike the others, he didn't rush. He observed, calculated. Jack's taxi sped forward again, but Burke stayed on his trail, calm and focused. Back on the road, Sarah's voice broke the tension. "Faster," she said quietly. Jack didn't question it. He pushed the taxi to its limits, the engine roaring as they sped down the empty highway. Then something unexpected happened. Seth suddenly opened the door and stepped out of the moving car. "Hey!" Jack shouted, startled. But Seth didn't respond. Instead, he walked into the middle of the road and stood still, directly in Burke's path. For a split second, everything seemed to freeze. Then, just as Burke's car reached him, Seth did something impossible. He stood firm, his body becoming completely rigid, like an unbreakable wall. The car slammed into him. The impact was loud and violent, but instead of Seth being thrown aside, it was the car that took the damage. Burke's vehicle crumpled, completely destroyed by the collision. Back in the taxi, Sarah calmly turned the vehicle around using her abilities, guiding it back towards Seth without Jack even touching the wheel. Jack stared in disbelief. "What was that?" he whispered. Seth returned to the car as if nothing unusual had happened. But for Jack, everything had changed. Before he could process it, he stepped out again, anger taking over. He approached the remaining soldiers, assuming they were connected to the men from his past. "Tell Mr. Wolf I'm not coming back," he shouted. Burke, now standing near the wreckage of his car, watched him closely. It didn't take long for him to realize something important. Jack didn't know the truth. "You're getting involved in something you don't understand," Burke said firmly. But Jack ignored him. He returned to the taxi, his mind racing. As they drove away, the tension slowly faded, but the questions only grew stronger. After a few moments of silence, Jack spoke again, his tone calmer this time. "I'm sorry," he said. "Whatever this is, I'll get you where you need to go." Sarah nodded slightly, her expression softening. Hours later, they reached a remote area. A quiet, deserted house stood alone in the distance. Jack stopped the taxi and turned around. "That'll be $720, he said. Without hesitation, Seth handed him a large bundle of money, far more than the fare. Before Jack could say anything, the two stepped out and began walking toward the house. Jack sat there for a moment, staring at the money in his hands. Something didn't feel right. With a sigh, he stepped out of the taxi. "I should give this back," he muttered. As he approached the house, a sudden scream echoed from inside. Jack froze. For a brief moment, he considered walking away, but he couldn't ignore it. Carefully, he stepped inside. What he found surprised him. Sarah and Seth were hiding behind a sofa, clearly frightened. "You need to leave," Seth warned. "It's not safe." But Jack shook his head. "I'm not leaving you two here alone." At that moment, a strange signal appeared on Seth's device. Both children immediately focused on it and began moving deeper into the house. Hesitant but determined, Jack followed. They entered the kitchen, where Seth used his device to open a hidden passage, right inside the refrigerator. Jack blinked in disbelief. "Of course," he muttered. "A secret tunnel in a fridge." Despite his fear, he followed them inside. The passage led them underground into a strange and mysterious space. Felt nothing like a normal basement. Instead, it resembled something from another world. A large cave filled with unfamiliar objects and structures. Seth moved toward a glowing sphere, sensing something important. Sarah placed her necklace on it, and in return, the sphere revealed a small but powerful-looking device. Jack stared at it. "What is that?" he asked. Seth's expression grew serious. "It's something we can't let fall into the wrong hands." Before Jack could ask more, a low, unsettling sound echoed through the cave. Something was coming. Jack's instincts kicked in immediately. "Run!" he shouted. The three of them hid among nearby bushes as heavy footsteps approached. From the shadows, a terrifying creature emerged. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Large, powerful, and clearly dangerous. Gathering his courage, Jack grabbed a wooden stick and stepped forward, trying to protect the children. But the creature was too strong. Within seconds, Jack was forced to retreat, barely escaping its reach. The monster began destroying parts of the cave, giving them a brief chance to escape. But as they ran, everything went wrong. The creature grabbed Sarah. "Sarah!" Seth shouted. Without hesitation, Seth tried to distract it, but the monster overpowered him and threw him aside. For a moment it seemed hopeless. Then Sarah broke free. Seeing an opening, Jack charged forward, attacking the creature with everything he had. At the same time, Sarah used her power to launch a burning sphere at the monster, stunning it. "Now!" Jack shouted. They ran. But just as they were about to escape, Seth was struck and collapsed. "Seth!" Sarah cried. Without thinking, Jack lifted Seth into his arms. "Move!" he said firmly. Together, they escaped the cave and rushed back to the taxi. As the engine roared to life, they sped away into the night, leaving the monster behind. For now, the taxi sped through the dark roads, its engine echoing into the quiet night. Jack gripped the steering wheel tightly, his mind racing just as fast as the car. Everything that had happened felt impossible: strange children, armed pursuers, and now a terrifying creature. In the back seat, Sarah stayed focused, watching Seth closely. He was unconscious, his breathing slow but steady. Jack glanced at them through the mirror, concern replacing his earlier frustration. After a few tense minutes, Seth finally stirred. "Hey, kid, you all right?" Jack asked. Seth opened his eyes, still weak but aware. Relief washed over Sarah's face. "You're okay." But Jack had reached his limit. "Enough," he said firmly. "No more secrets. Who are you? What is chasing us? And what was that thing back there?" Before either of them could answer, a strange mechanical sound filled the air. A glowing drone suddenly appeared in front of the taxi. "Hold on," Jack shouted. He swerved sharply, steering the car off the road to avoid a direct hit. The drone hovered, scanning the area as if searching for them. Jack quickly drove into a nearby tunnel, hoping the darkness would hide them. Inside the tunnel, everything went quiet except for the sound of their breathing. For a moment, it seemed like they had escaped. Then Sarah spoke softly. "That creature, it's called a siphon." Jack frowned. "A what?" "It was created to hunt," she explained. "To find us and stop us." Jack shook his head, trying to process it. "You're telling me that thing was built just to chase you?" Seth nodded weakly. Before Jack could ask more, the drone reappeared at the tunnel's entrance. It hovered there, scanning carefully. Jack held his breath. The taxi sat in darkness, completely still. Seconds felt like minutes. Then, slowly, the drone moved away. Jack exhaled. That was too close. Without wasting time, he drove forward again, guiding the taxi along a rough path that followed a railway track. For a brief moment, it seemed like they might finally get away. But danger returned almost instantly. A loud roar filled the sky. Jack looked up just in time to see a spacecraft descending above them. "You've got to be kidding me," he exclaimed. The ship began attacking, forcing Jack to push the taxi to its limits once again. He spotted another tunnel ahead. "That's our only shot." He accelerated, heading straight for it. But this time, the spacecraft followed them inside. The narrow tunnel became a dangerous trap. "Go faster," Sarah said calmly. "I'm already going as fast as I can," Jack replied. Then something incredible happened. Without touching anything, Sarah focused, and the taxi surged forward even faster. It was as if an invisible force was pushing it. Jack's eyes widened. "Okay, now I'm officially confused." Ahead, a freight train suddenly appeared, rushing toward them. "Brake!" Jack shouted to himself. He slammed the brakes just in time. The taxi screeched to a stop, barely avoiding a collision. Behind them, the spacecraft couldn't react in time. Crashed into the train, causing a massive explosion. The tunnel shook violently. Jack shielded his eyes from the light. When the dust settled, the threat was gone. All three of them sat in silence for a moment. Then Jack turned slowly toward the back seat. "All right," he said. "No more guessing. I want the truth." Sarah looked at Seth. Seth nodded. Without saying a word, Sarah raised her hand slightly. Inside the taxi, objects began to lift into the air, coins, small items, even parts of the dashboard. They floated weightlessly, moving as if controlled by an invisible force. Jack stared in complete disbelief. How are you doing that?" Sarah met his eyes. "We can control things with our minds," she said simply. Jack leaned back in his seat, speechless. Everything finally started to make sense, but at the same time, nothing made sense at all. After a few moments, he let out a quiet laugh. I knew I should have taken that passenger's offer about aliens, he said, shaking his head. Despite everything, a small sense of trust began to form. They continued driving until they reached a roadside mechanic. Jack decided it was safer to leave the taxi there for repairs after everything it had been through. From there, the three of them walked to a nearby restaurant to rest and think about their next move. Inside, the atmosphere was calm, completely different from the chaos they had just escaped. Jack ordered food, trying to act normal, but his mind was still filled with questions. Just then, his phone rang. He answered it cautiously. A familiar voice spoke from the other end. It was Burke. I know where you are, Burke said calmly. Bring the children to me. Do that and your past problems disappear. Jack's expression hardened. He knew exactly what that meant. His record, his past mistakes, all erased. For a moment he considered it. But then he looked at Sarah and Seth. They trusted him. And despite everything, he couldn't betray that. No, Jack said firmly. I'm not handing them over. He ended the call. Immediately, he turned to the others. We need to move. Looking outside, he noticed armed men surrounding the restaurant. Inside, tension began to rise as people sensed something was wrong. Burke and his team entered shortly after, trying to take control of the situation. But something unexpected happened. The restaurant staff stood their ground, protecting the customers and refusing to back down. In the middle of the confusion, a waitress quietly approached Jack. Follow me, she whispered. Without hesitation, Jack, Sarah, and Seth followed her through the back of the restaurant. They reached a hidden exit. Seth used his abilities to unlock a roof hatch, creating a path to escape. One by one, they climbed out and made their way outside. For a brief moment, it seemed like they had escaped again. But as they ran, a dog nearby started barking loudly. The noise risked drawing attention. Sarah gently focused, and the dog instantly calmed down. Jack blinked. You can do that too? No time for answers. They rushed back toward the mechanic to retrieve the taxi. As soon as Jack started the engine, he saw Burke's men spotting them. Here we go again, he muttered. The chase resumed. Cars surrounded them once more. But this time, Sarah used her powers in a new way. With a focused look, she caused the engines of the pursuing vehicles to fail. One by one, they stalled, giving Jack the opening he needed. He drove straight through the gap at full speed. Behind them, Burke tried to react, but it was too late. They had escaped. As they drove into the distance, the dog from earlier ran after them. Jack noticed. You want to come too? He said, slowing down slightly. Sarah opened the door, and the dog jumped inside. For the first time in a while, the tension eased just a little. But their journey was far from over. They still needed a plan. And more importantly, they needed help. The road stretched ahead quietly as the taxi carried Jack, Sarah, Seth, and their new canine companion farther away from danger. For the first time since the chaos began, there was a brief sense of calm inside the car. But it didn't last long. We can't keep running like this, Jack said, eyes fixed on the road. Who can help us? Before Seth could answer, Sarah spoke gently. Dr. Alex. Jack's grip on the wheel tightened slightly. He remembered her, the same scientist who had once invited him to a lecture about life beyond Earth. You mean the doctor from before? He asked. Sarah nodded. She's important. She already knows more than most people. Seth added, she was one of the first humans to see our ship. Jack let out a slow breath. All right, then she's our best shot. With a new direction in mind, they headed toward the event where Dr. Alex was speaking. When they arrived, the place was lively and filled with people. Scientists, students, and curious visitors filled the hall, all gathered to hear discussions about space and the possibility of life beyond Earth. Jack parked the taxi nearby and handed it over to an attendant, asking them to look after it and to give some food to the dog. Stay safe, he said softly to the animal before heading inside with Sarah and Seth. Inside the hall, Dr. Alex stood on stage delivering her lecture. She spoke with confidence and passion, explaining her research and theories about the universe. But something felt off. Members of the audience began asking strange and confusing questions. Questions that didn't seem to make sense. Alex paused, clearly puzzled by their behavior. Meanwhile, not far away, one of Burke's men spotted Jack moving through the crowd. Within seconds, the information spread. They were here. Back near the stage, Jack finally managed to approach Alex. He gently pulled her aside to a quieter corner. Listen, he said urgently. I need your help. Alex frowned, recognizing him. You're the taxi driver from yesterday. What is this about? Jack hesitated for only a moment before speaking. It's about them, he said, gesturing towards Sarah and Seth. They're not normal. Alex crossed her arms, skeptical. What does that even mean? Jack took a deep breath and quickly explained everything. The chase, the powers, the creature, and the danger they were all in. Alex listened, but her expression remained doubtful. That's impossible, she said. You're asking me to believe something with no proof. Before Jack could respond, Seth stepped forward. Without warning, objects nearby began to shake and fall. At the same time, Sarah raised her hand, and everything stopped midair. The falling items froze, suspended as if time itself had paused. Alex's eyes widened. Slowly, the objects returned to their places. For a moment, no one spoke. You're serious, Alex whispered. Sarah nodded. To help her understand further, Seth activated a small device. A glowing image appeared, showing a distant part of the universe, filled with stars and unfamiliar worlds. This is where we come from, Seth explained. Alex stared at the projection, amazed. Sarah continued, her voice calm but filled with urgency. We came to help, she said. Our planet is in danger. The balance of nature is being destroyed. Seth added, our parents are scientists. They created a device that gathers information about ecosystems across the universe. He held up the small object they had retrieved earlier. This can help save our world, he said, but only if we return home in time. Alex slowly began to understand the weight of their situation. And if you don't? She asked quietly. Sarah's expression grew serious. Then our people may come to Earth, she said. And they won't come peacefully. The room suddenly felt heavier. Jack looked at Alex. We need your help to get their ship back. Alex didn't hesitate this time. Then we don't have a moment to waste, she said firmly. Using her contacts, Alex arranged for them to meet an astronomy expert, Dr. Harland. A short while later, they arrived at his location. Dr. Harland greeted them warmly. but he had no idea who Sarah and Seth truly were. To avoid complications, they chose not to reveal everything to him. Alex asked directly, if a government agency recovered something unusual, where would they take it? Harlan thought for a moment. There's only one place that makes sense, he said. A highly secure facility known as Witch Mountain. He pulled up a map and pointed out the location. It's heavily guarded, he warned. No one gets in or out easily. Jack exchanged a glance with Alex. That's where we need to go, Jack said. Before they left, Harlan gave one final piece of advice. Be careful who you trust, he said seriously. Places like that, they keep secrets. With that, Alex stepped aside to gather some equipment she needed for the journey. Meet me shortly, she told Jack. Jack nodded, watching her leave. For a moment, everything seemed to be falling into place. But danger was never far behind. As Jack turned back, he suddenly found himself surrounded. The same men from his past, Mr. Wolf's people, had found him again. You should have accepted the offer, one of them said coldly. Jack clenched his fists. He knew he couldn't stay trapped here, not now. Watching carefully, he waited for the right moment. Then, in a quick move, he grabbed a nearby prop weapon from a costumed attendee and used it to distract them. With swift and precise movements, he managed to overpower the group and break free. Without wasting time, he ran. He needed to find Sarah and Seth. But as he searched, the situation grew worse. Burke and his men had arrived at the convention, and somewhere in the chaos, the siphon had returned. The creature moved silently through the building, searching. When Jack finally found Sarah and Seth, he didn't hesitate. We need to leave now. Just then, they saw it. The siphon climbed onto the stage. Before it could attack, Sarah used her power to pull down a heavy metal structure, crashing it onto the creature and knocking it back. Go! Jack shouted. They ran, but the exits were blocked. Soldiers surrounded the building. They were trapped. For a brief moment, it seemed like there was no escape. Then Jack had an idea. Sarah, he said quickly, read my mind. She closed her eyes for a split second and understood. Immediately, she used her power. Across the hall, machines lit up, alarms rang, and people began cheering wildly as if they had all suddenly won something exciting. The entire crowd erupted into chaos. Using the confusion, Jack, Sarah, Seth, and Alex, who had returned just in time, blended into the crowd and slipped away unnoticed. Outside, they rushed to a car and sped off. Behind them, Burke's forces scrambled to react, but it was too late. For now, they had escaped again. But ahead of them lay their greatest challenge yet. Witch Mountain. The city lights of Las Vegas slowly faded behind them as the car sped into the darker, quieter roads leading toward the mountains. Inside the vehicle, the mood had shifted. The chaos of the convention was behind them, but the danger ahead felt even greater. Jack focused on the road, his expression serious. So this Witch Mountain place, he said, heavily guarded, secret facility, sounds like a fun trip. Alex, sitting beside him, replied calmly, it won't be easy. Places like that are designed to keep people out and secrets in. In the back seat, Sarah and Seth sat quietly. Their earlier confidence had softened into concern. Time was running out and they both knew it. We have to move fast, Seth said. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to get the ship back. Jack nodded. Then we don't wait. After hours of travel, they finally reached the outskirts of a dense forest. Jack parked the car at a safe distance, hidden from view. We go on foot from here, Alex said. The group stepped out into the cool night air. The forest was quiet, almost too quiet, as if even nature was holding its breath. With careful steps, they moved uphill through the trees until they reached a high point overlooking the facility. From there, they could see it clearly. Witch Mountain. Bright lights illuminated the area. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Cameras scanned every corner. It was exactly as Harlan had described. Secure, controlled, and nearly impossible to enter unnoticed. Jack let out a low whistle. Yeah, they're definitely hiding something. Alex studied the layout. There has to be another way in. A maintenance tunnel, ventilation system. Something. Before they could plan further, something unexpected happened. A soft hiss cut through the silence. Within seconds, both Sarah and Seth collapsed. Hey! Jack rushed toward them. What happened? Before he could react, armed soldiers emerged from the shadows, surrounding them. Burke stepped forward. I was hoping you'd lead me straight here, he said calmly. Jack stood up, anger flashing in his eyes. You could have just asked. Burke ignored the comment. His attention was on the unconscious children. They're too important to let go, he said. Jack lunged forward, trying to fight back, but the soldiers quickly restrained him. Alex tried to intervene, but she was also captured. You don't understand what you're doing, she said firmly. Burke looked at her. On the contrary, I understand exactly what I'm doing. With no way to escape, Jack and Alex were forced into a military vehicle along with the captured children. As the vehicle moved toward the facility, silence filled the space. Alex turned to Jack, frustration clear on her face. You gave up too quickly, she said. Jack looked at her, his expression unreadable. Did I? Before she could respond, the guards shifted slightly, distracted by the tension. In that brief moment, Jack moved. With a sudden burst of action, he struck the nearest guard, knocking him unconscious. Before the others could react, he disarmed them and quickly freed Alex. Within seconds, both guards were down. Alex blinked in surprise. You planned that? Jack gave a small smile. I wasn't about to walk in there willingly. Now free, they quickly moved out of the vehicle and into the shadows. We have to get them back before they start running tests, Alex said urgently. Jack nodded. Then let's move. Using their surroundings for cover, they approached the facility. Alex spotted a ventilation opening. That's our way in. Without hesitation, they climbed into the narrow duct and began crawling through the system. The air was tight and silent, every movement echoing softly. After a tense journey through the vents, they dropped down into a quiet corridor inside the facility. They paused, listening carefully. Voices echoed in the distance. Scientists, soldiers, activity everywhere. We're close, Alex whispered. They moved carefully through the halls, staying out of sight. Eventually, they reached a laboratory area. Inside, scientists worked around advanced equipment, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Jack and Alex exchanged a glance. Then they acted. Using nearby objects, they quietly knocked out a scientist and quickly put on protective suits to blend in. Let's hope this works, Jack muttered. Disguised, they walked through the lab, keeping their heads down. But time was running out. Elsewhere in the facility, chaos suddenly erupted. The siphon had arrived. Alarms blared as the creature attacked, breaking through walls and sending soldiers scrambling. Burke immediately took control. Eliminate it, he ordered. But even as soldiers rushed to stop the creature, Burke realized something. It's heading for the lab, he said. It wants the children. Back in the lab, Jack and Alex found Sarah and Seth. The two were regaining consciousness. Jack, Sarah said softly, relieved. We're getting you out, Jack replied. Seth nodded, focusing his energy. Within moments, both children used their powers to free themselves from their restraints. We need to move, Alex said. Together, the group began making their way through the facility. Seth activated his device, guiding them toward the location of their spaceship. We're close, he said. Meanwhile, Burke discovered that the prisoners were gone. His expression hardened. Lock everything down, he ordered. Emergency alarms echoed through the halls. But Jack and the others kept moving. Alex took the lead, confidently walking past scientists while maintaining her disguise. Burke has ordered a full evacuation, she told anyone who questioned her. If you don't leave, you'll be in danger. Her tone was convincing enough to send people rushing away. Step by step, they got closer. Finally, they reached a large chamber. There it was, the spaceship. It stood silently, surrounded by equipment and dim lighting. Jack stared at it in awe. That's incredible. Seth didn't waste time. He placed his device against the structure. The ship responded instantly. Lights flickered on. A low hum filled the room. Then, slowly, the door opened. For a moment, everything seemed to be going perfectly. But then, stop! Burke's voice echoed behind them. He and his soldiers had arrived. Weapons were raised. There was nowhere to run. The group froze. Tension filled the air. Then suddenly a gun fired. Time seemed to slow. But before the bullet could hit anyone, Seth raised his hand. The bullet stopped midair. Everyone stared in shock. Don't shoot, Burke ordered quickly. At that exact moment, the siphon burst into the chamber, smashing through the wall. All attention shifted instantly. The creature roared, creating chaos. Go! Jack shouted. Without hesitation, the group ran into the spaceship. Soldiers tried to stop them, but the siphon attacked, blocking their path. Inside the ship, systems activated rapidly. Lights flashed. Engines powered up. Seth moved to the controls. We're leaving. The ship lifted off, shaking the entire chamber. As it rose, Seth made one final move. He guided the ship straight toward the siphon. The impact destroyed the creature completely. Moments later, the ship broke through the facility's exit and soared into the open sky. They were free, for now. The spaceship shot upward into the night sky, leaving the lights of Witch Mountain far below. Inside, the hum of powerful engines filled the air, and soft glowing panels lit up around them. For a moment, no one spoke. They had made it out. Jack looked around in amazement. I take back everything I said. This is incredible. Alex, still catching her breath, steadied herself against the wall. We actually did it. Seth remained focused, his hands moving across the controls with confidence. We're not safe yet, he said. The ship took damage during takeoff. Sarah moved beside him, watching the displays. The compression chamber is unstable, she added. If we don't fix it, we won't make it home. Jack raised an eyebrow. Okay. And I'm guessing that's bad. Very bad, Seth replied. Without hesitation, Jack stepped forward. Tell me where to go. Seth pointed toward a narrow corridor. Follow that passage. It leads to the lower chamber. Jack nodded. All right, I'll handle it. As he moved deeper into the ship, the atmosphere changed. The glowing lights dimmed, and the hum of the engines grew louder. The corridor opened into a mechanical section filled with strange devices and shifting energy. At the center of it all was the damaged area. Sparks flickered, and a soft pulsing light showed where the system was failing. Jack took a cautious step forward. All right, let's fix a spaceship, he muttered. But before he could get closer, a sudden movement caught his eye. From the shadows, the siphon. Jack froze. That thing again? He whispered. The creature had survived. Damaged, but still dangerous. It lunged forward. Jack dodged just in time, narrowly avoiding its attack. He grabbed a nearby metal rod and held it up defensively. Okay, round 2, he said, steadying himself. Back in the main control room, Seth suddenly felt something was wrong. Jack's in trouble, he said. He turned to Alex. Take control with Sarah. Without waiting, Seth ran toward the lower chamber. Inside, the fight had already begun. Jack swung the metal rod, keeping the creature at a distance. But the siphon was fast and relentless. It struck again, forcing Jack backward toward the unstable energy core. Not good, not good, Jack muttered. At that moment, Seth arrived. Jack, he called out. The siphon turned its attention toward Seth. Seizing the moment, Seth used his power and vanished from sight. The creature paused, confused. Over here, Seth shouted from another direction. The siphon turned again. Then Seth disappeared once more. Jack understood the plan immediately. You're distracting it, he said. Seth reappeared briefly. Finish it. The creature lunged again, but this time Jack was ready. With perfect timing, he grabbed hold of the siphon and pulled it toward the glowing energy core. The creature struggled, trying to break free. Stay right there, Jack shouted. With one final push, he forced the siphon into the bright energy field. In a flash of light, the creature was completely destroyed. Silence followed. Jack stepped back, breathing heavily. Well, I hope that's the last time, he said. Seth quickly moved to the damaged system. We have to seal this now. Together, they secured the chamber. The sparks faded, and the ship's systems stabilized. Back in the control room, Sarah looked at the panels. It's working, she said with relief. Moments later, Jack and Seth returned. Alex smiled. You two took your time. Jack shrugged. Just cleaning up. For the first time since their escape, the tension finally began to fade. The ship continued its journey, moving farther away from Earth. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across space. Inside, a quiet understanding settled among them. They had faced danger, trusted each other, and survived. But now came the hardest part, saying goodbye. Seth stepped forward. We're far enough now. Sarah looked at Jack and Alex, her expression soft. Thank you, she said, for everything. Jack crossed his arms, trying to stay composed. You two made it interesting, that's for sure. Alex smiled gently. You're going to save your world. Seth nodded. Because of you. There was a moment of silence. Then Jack spoke. Take care of yourselves and your planet. Sarah gave a small nod. And you take care of ours. Jack glanced at the small dog sitting nearby. I will, he said. One by one, they exchanged their goodbyes. Then Seth and Sarah moved toward the control area. The ship's systems shifted, preparing for their journey home. Jack and Alex stood back, watching. Slowly, the spacecraft separated, ready to continue deeper into space. As it began to move away, a sense of hope filled the air. The mission was complete. The danger had passed, and somewhere out there, a distant world had a chance to be saved. Jack watched until the ship disappeared into the stars. Then he turned to Alex. Well, he said quietly, that was one unforgettable ride. Alex smiled. And it all started with a simple taxi ride. Together, they stood in silence, knowing that their lives would never be the same again. The night sky slowly returned to its quiet stillness as the glowing spaceship disappeared into the distance. Jack and Alex stood side by side, watching until there was nothing left but stars. For a while, neither of them spoke. It was hard to believe that everything had happened in just a short time. Strange signals, powerful children, dangerous chases, and a journey that had taken them far beyond anything they had ever imagined. Jack finally broke the silence. Well, he said, letting out a long breath, I guess life's not going back to normal anytime soon. Alex gave a small smile. I don't think either of us would want it to. They turned and began walking back toward the vehicle, the cool night air brushing gently against them. The world felt the same, but at the same time completely different. As they reached the car, the small dog wagged its tail happily, as if unaware of the incredible journey it had just been part of. Jack knelt down and patted it. Looks like it's just us now, huh? The dog barked softly. Alex leaned against the car, thoughtful. Do you think they'll make it? Jack stood up, looking at the sky again. They will, he said with quiet confidence. Those kids, they're stronger than they look. For a moment, Alex studied him. You've changed, she said. Jack raised an eyebrow. Yeah, you didn't want anything to do with this at first, she continued. Now you risked everything to help them. Jack shrugged slightly. I guess. Some things are worth the trouble. They got into the car and began the drive back. The roads were quiet again, just like before, but now every mile carried a sense of reflection. After some time, Alex spoke again. What will you do now? Jack thought about it. Honestly, I don't know, he admitted. But I do know one thing. I'm done running from my past. Alex nodded. That's a good place to start. Back in the city, life was already returning to normal. People moved through the streets, unaware of how close everything had come to danger. News reports talked about strange disturbances, unexplained events, and a mysterious incident near the mountains. But no one knew the full story, and maybe that was for the best. Jack pulled up near his taxi stand. The familiar place looked the same as always, but he felt different stepping out of the car. This is where it all started, he said. Alex smiled. And where something new begins. The next morning, Jack woke up earlier than usual. Sunlight streamed through the window, and for once his mind felt clear. He stepped outside and looked at his taxi. There was no hesitation this time. He got in, started the engine, and drove off, ready to move forward. As the day went on, passengers came and went. Conversations filled the air, just like before. But now Jack listened differently. He noticed more, appreciated more. Later that afternoon, Alex visited him at the taxi stand. "You look busy," she said. Jack smiled. "Just doing my job." She leaned against the car. "I've been thinking. There's still so much we don't understand about the universe." Jack chuckled. "You mean after everything we just saw, you want to know more?" Alex nodded. "Of course." Jack thought for a moment. Then he said, "If you ever need a driver again, you know where to find me." Alex smiled. "I'll remember that." Nearby, the dog rested comfortably, now clearly part of Jack's life. Everything felt settled, but not ordinary, because now they both knew the universe was much bigger than they had ever imagined. And somewhere out there, two extraordinary children were fighting to save their world. As the sun began to set, Jack looked up at the sky one more time, not with confusion, not with doubt, but with a quiet sense of wonder. Morning light gently spread across the city as a new day began. The streets slowly filled with movement, cars passing by, people heading to work, and life continuing as it always had. But for Jack and Alex, nothing felt quite the same. Jack stood beside his taxi, finishing his first ride of the day. As the passenger stepped out, he paused for a moment, watching the world around him with a quiet sense of appreciation. He wasn't just going through the motions anymore. He was paying attention. "Have a good day," he said sincerely. The passenger smiled and nodded before walking away. Nearby, the small dog rested comfortably in the shade, now fully settled into its new life. Jack glanced over and chuckled. "Not a bad upgrade, huh?" he said. The dog wagged its tail. A little later, Alex arrived, carrying a folder filled with notes and research. "Still working?" Jack asked. She smiled. "More than ever." They stood beside the taxi, the familiar setting now carrying memories of everything they had been through. "I've started putting together everything we learned," Alex said. "About the environment, about other worlds, about how close we came to something much worse." Jack nodded slowly. "And people are listening?" "Some are," she replied. "It's a start." Jack looked thoughtful. "Sometimes a start is all you need." They both fell quiet for a moment. Then Alex spoke again. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked. Jack didn't hesitate. Every day, he looked up at the sky, the same way he had done so many times since their journey ended. "They had a mission," he continued, "and they believed in it." Alex followed his gaze. "I think they succeeded," she said softly. Far away, on a distant world, Sarah and Seth stood together overlooking a landscape that was slowly changing. The skies, once heavy and unstable, had begun to clear. Vegetation showed signs of recovery. Water flowed more steadily through the land. Their efforts and the knowledge they had brought back were making a difference. "It's working," Sarah said, her voice filled with quiet relief. Seth nodded. "We're restoring the balance." Around them, others worked tirelessly, using the data to repair what had been damaged. But even as progress continued, Sarah looked up at her planet's sky, thinking of another world far away. They helped us, she said. Seth smiled. And now we help ours. Back on Earth, Alex closed her folder. There's still a lot to do, she said. For our planet, I mean. Jack leaned against his taxi. Then I guess we better get to it. She looked at him. You mean that? Jack gave a small, confident smile. Yeah, I do. Because now it wasn't just about one adventure. It was about what came after. About the choices people made every day. About protecting the world they lived in. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the city moved forward, unaware of how close it had come to danger, and how much it owed to a few unlikely heroes. Jack got into his taxi and started the engine. Need a ride? He asked with a grin. Alex laughed lightly and got in. Always. The car pulled away, blending into the flow of traffic. Above them, the sky stretched endlessly, calm, bright, full of possibility. And somewhere, far beyond what could be seen, two young travelers continued their work, carrying with them the memory of a small blue planet and the people who had helped save their world. The journey had ended, but its meaning would last far into the future.